Hello, my name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and this is Communiversity. This is an initiative to engage Black Adventist young people to show them the skills that they need to succeed in the future. This program was inspired by Ronnie Vanderhorst, and he wanted to ensure that young people were able to thrive and not just survive, and have the schools that have the tools that they needed in the future. So we're excited that you once again are here with us on this program. And this one other thing that I wanted to mention is that this program has been sponsored in partnership with the North Pacific Union of Seventh-day Adventists, and we are so thankful for their seed grant to allow us to have this. Well, I have one of my good friends, Pastor Claudia Allen, with us today. I wanted to engage her in a dialogue about the skills and the things that you need to know by the age of 30. We all know that our target audience for this programming is between the ages of 18 and 24. And we want to equip you with the knowledge that you need to have to be successful across the board. And so one of the great things about Pastor Allen is that not only is she a pastor, but she is someone that has been an educator. She's someone that has been in multiple disciplines, engaged multiple disciplines. And so I wanted to bring someone to speak on this topic that had a wide array of backgrounds in different areas, and so glad to have her on this program. Thank you so much, Claudia, for being with us. No, this is rich, and I hope those who watch just appreciate your vulnerability and just kind of taking us through that kind of trajectory and timeline. One of the things that stick out to me, just based on what you shared, and also just something that you shared on social media recently, you talked about your transition into a leadership position. And this is helpful, I believe would be helpful for young leaders. You talked about not necessarily being the person that is actually implementing things, but you're thinking about things more strategically and things like that. I would love for you to talk about these two skills. One is that that transition into leadership, and how that may be different from being the person that is implementing someone else's vision. Then also this notion of accountability. Even in my own life, I have now been confronted with, in my leadership journey, is holding people accountable when they have not necessarily met the expectations and the agreements that we've had. So if you could talk about that as a young leader, that would be helpful.
Totally. So when I got to Howard County, I was 30. And I got to Howard County as a outreach coordinator. Within 6 months, I got promoted to supervisor. And so that was an immediate, kind of leadership change that was new for me, because it's one thing to lead people. It's another thing to supervise people. Right? Because now I, just like you're talking about, Sydney, my part of my role is this enforcing of accountability. Right? So now I have to be in a constant state of communication with you about what you are doing and what you are not doing. And what I found was, or what I learned during that period, people are far more responsive to affirmation than they are to critique. So even when people don't do what they said they were going to do, coming in and saying, hey, you were supposed to do this by such and such a time, and this is not due, and why now we're late, and now we're behind. Now catastrophizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I found is people shut down when leaders approach them with that energy. And
Right.
so I started giving different energy specifically to my team.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, hey guys, man, I really appreciate the way that you guys took care of this, and list specific things that I know they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say, man, I know we had just so much on our plates. The next time we do this event, it's going to be really important that we put some checks and balances in place to ensure that together we're able to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish XYZ goal. So at that point, people no longer felt like, oh man, Claudia is not attack. She's not going to come in here and attack us. She's not going to come in here
Right.
and say, you didn't, you didn't, you didn't, you didn't. Instead, we're going to have a collective team meeting where we
Mm-hmm.
can very robustly break down what we accomplished, what we did do. And I'm going to keep using this we language because I was at
Mm-hmm.
the event with you. I was taking the chairs down. I was taking the tables down. I was, I'm not a leader who is just up front. I don't
Mm-hmm.
just show up when the cameras are there and all the people are there and I'm ready to be in the spotlight. I'm very much so a leader that is like, if I need to be in the back on the board, that's what I'm going to do in order to ensure that this event is a success. So when you're in the trenches as a leader with your team, ensuring that you're partnering with them, you're taking on tasks with them to execute and get things done. But then in that conversation, we're saying, okay, hey, you know what? This is what we need to change and adjust together so that this is something that we don't miss. And when I have done that, typically one or more persons on the team implement that thing without me having to ask.
Okay.
Because the thought is we as a team have discussed this, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're like, oh, you know what? Remember we talked with Claudia about blah, 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 blah. We got to make sure that we're counting blah, 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 blah. And it's there. There are absolutely times where that has not happened, right?
Yeah.
And there are instances where you can do all the niceties, all the kindness, and you still have to come in and put somebody on a pip, right? You have
Yeah.
to put
And
somebody.
what is a PIP? What's a PIP
A
for this?
PIP is a personal improvement plan. Young people, if
Mm.
your supervisor is having a conversation with you about a PIP, then that means that you are so severely underperforming in your role that they're needing to document and give you as many resources as possible for you to succeed. And in that, there's a very real possibility that if you do not improve your performance, your work performance with these resources and training and support, whatever it all might be, you will be terminated.
Mm.
And so that is what a PIP is. A PIP is, and it can be scary. It can be very emotional. A lot of people cry when their supervisors are trying to give them or put them on a PIP and different things of this nature. And so it's a very emotional process, but there are people who have successfully gotten out of PIPs. It's not a
Mhm.
guaranteed fire. It's not a guaranteed termination. So if you find yourself on a PIP, my suggestion is that you work very, very hard to get out of that. If you find yourself on a PIP and you are at a job that you do not like, my suggestion is that you get hired somewhere else as quickly as possible before they
Right.
terminate you.
Yeah.
And so there are, there's that. So in that, right, I learned how to do performance evaluations, to have those difficult conversations, to do the accountability. But because I was on such a small team, even though I was in this, kind of senior level leadership role, it was senior because the office is very small.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I'm still required and expected to do a large share of executing a variety of things. So
Mhm.
even when I left that, kind of manager role and then went into this new role as a director, I went into my director role with a manager's mindset.
Yes.
And this is where it gets good.
Mhm.
And so I went into this thing saying, okay, I've got another small team. I need to be in the trenches, doing all of the things, killing the game. This is how we are going to win together.
Mhm.
And the longer I was trying to do this, it felt like I wasn't really kind of being let in. So it
Right.
was there's this weird, like, okay, cool. So I got this. And then people would be like, I can send that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, well, you know what? That's fine. I'm gonna send all these emails to these elected officials. And then my CEO would be like, oh, that's something our virtual assistant can do. She can just
Mm.
tap into your thing and that's done.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I'm like double dutching it. I'm like, what do I do? Because I'm
Mhm.
used to being the person that I create, I design, I
Mhm.
created the discrimination curriculum, designed the workbooks, the slides, everything,
Mhm.
and then went into the room and did the lecture, did the facilitation, drafted all of the reports, drafted all of these press releases, was writing speeches for the administrator, the county executive, like in my mind I'm like, this is what is needed from me. And now I'm having to
Right.
get used to the fact that no, there's somebody on my team who's responsible for that.
Wow.
So now I'm like having a little bit of an existential crisis, to be very
Mm.
vulnerable, right? Because I
Mm.
at this point, because of how I work over all of
Mhm.
these years, my full journey, right?
Mhm.
My insecurity is that I believed that my worth was attached to my product.
This is an important point. This is an important,
So
important point. Yeah.
it's I only have value on this team if I produce an exceptional report, deliver that report. I am only valuable if I
Mm.
have a physical thing to show you that I did.
Yeah.
And now in this director role, I'm realizing that there are definitely some deliverables that are my responsibility that I've
Mhm.
gotten to do, and that is a product that I've been able to show. But I have realized that the greatest value that I have added as a director is now in my strategic thinking. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
now it's more Claudia is mapping out how we will strategically approach our work to ensure its efficacy, to ensure that the implementation is being done well and right, to ensure growth. We want to ensure growth. We want to ensure impact, right? In order to ensure growth and impact, you have to have somebody that's thinking strategically about that growth and impact. You can't just have people kind of aimlessly spinning their wheels.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what they were doing when they didn't have a director. And so now Claudia comes in and says, okay, well, I see that you're doing this, but like, what is this for? What is this attached to? And just by asking questions, people were like, oh, like we didn't think about it like that, or we didn't know that that was there. We didn't know that. And so now we're able to rechart, remap, restructure, get
Mhm.
things in place so that we can, systematize what we're doing, but do it. The system is also operating at its optimum capacity. So
Okay.
because the you if you got a failed system that isn't even effective, then I mean that's also a fail as well. So it's
Right.
like, okay, now we're tweaking the system because we're doing some things and then realizing, hey, this actually doesn't work for the people we're trying to work with in programs, for the external stakeholders, we need to adjust this a little bit, this internal process, what have you. And in doing that, I realized that there is a very uncomfortable internal transition that every leader goes through when you shift from being the worker bee to being a director. And so as you all are growing in your careers, particularly I know for millennials and Gen Z, we are extremely educated. We have way too many degrees, way too many certificates. We are hot and we have a dense amount of knowledge, as well as energy and ability to implement and execute what is all up here in our head, which means that a lot of you might be like me, where you'll get into a worker situation and you will quickly outgrow it.
Yeah.
Because your work product is at a certain level of excellence that people are not used to. And so they're going to want to promote you. And you are also going to demonstrate in meetings that you do have a leadership mind, which is going to say, okay, hey, like this person should at least be supervising. This is middle management, at least, right? So now you're middle management, right? And so you're getting these promotions, you're growing quickly. And a lot of you are going to press for these promotions because you want the additional pay.
Right.
And so because we have all these student loans, because we can't afford anything, many of you might be unmarried. So you're in your apartment and all of your expenses are on you. So you are going to want to pursue greater employment opportunities, employment growth, because you want that salary increase, and you want that salary increase every 2 years. That's just in your internal desire, right? But what you don't know, what you're not realizing, is what comes with those promotions. And there is a product expectation change. There's a leadership expectation change. There are a variety of changes that come the moment that you step into particularly a senior or executive leadership role. And some of it might actually be tapping into some of your own insecurities, tapping into some of your triggers, tapping into some stuff that you haven't actually dealt with and addressed. And if you don't fix that stuff, you will not be a good leader. And your team will suffer. And when that product does not come forth, you will be blamed for it. Because even though you are not the person who has the task of drafting the press release, if you're the director of communications, you should have reviewed the press release before it went out to ensure it had no errors.
Right.
So there are levels to the game now, and you need to really make sure that you have dealt with your own brokenness so that you can lead from a place of compassion. That's so big for me, like giving my team compassion, giving them direction, allowing them to feel affirmed, encouraged, but also having clear expectations. They know very explicitly what I want and when I would like for it to be done. You cannot speak in vague generalities and be a leader. And so that transition is difficult, but the moment that you settle into it and you begin to reassign the value that you bring to an organization, the sooner you can do that when you're in a leadership role, the better off your team will be, the better off you will be, the better off everybody will be.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. In this last like 10 minutes here, one of the things that I think is important is kind of to set healthy boundaries. Could you talk about, as a person in the workforce, how do you set healthy boundaries and advocate for yourself without burning bridges?
Oh, that's really great. Absolutely. So I'm going to use my last job as an example of this. So my last administrator and I are still very close. We still text every once in a while. And she knew that I was not being compensated equivalent to the work that I was doing, what I was responsible for, and the quality of work that I was bringing, right? And so we first had multiple conversations about that. So you gotta first be willing to develop sincere relationships with people that are not transactional. So long before I ever got to a place where I decided I needed to leave that particular role, me and my administrator had developed a very close bond. And we're just talking regular. Like, hey, like, what do you see for yourself? She's asking me, like, what do you see for yourself? Where do you see yourself going long term? Like, you're not going to be here forever. So, like, do you have another degree that you want to get? She was real pressed. She could not stand that I left my doctoral program. So she was like constantly looking for PhD. She was like, apply to this. And I'm like, I'm not applying to this. I'm not doing it. Right. But that's the relationship that we had, is that there was this open line of communication that was about myself as a human being. So whether it was my educational advancement, whether it was what's going on with my family, whether it was, you know, ideas I had that I wanted to implement at work, whatever it was, you know, we're having a sincere conversation. And that was reciprocal. It also was creating space for her to share with me and say, this is my story. This is what I experienced. This is what I kind of see myself doing, or what I would like to do. It was mutually beneficial, even though she is, you know, what, 20 some odd years older than me. Right. And so by the time we got to a space where we realized, like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get Claudia the compensation I thought I was going to be able to get her. You know, I'm seeing that, you know, she's clearly burnt out. There's a lot of different things going on here. I am not going to hold it against her when she leaves.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming to her. I'm having a very honest conversation, and just and on top of that, there's some professionalism there. So when I, you know, got my job, you know, skills, Claudia, practicality, right? I did my best to have an in-person conversation with her.
Yes.
I did not resign via email. I did not resign via text message. I tried my best to set up a meeting with her. She ended up being sick. And so she was away for, like, she was working remotely for some time. And so we ended up doing it over a video conference, having that conversation. But it was an ongoing conversation. I told her, you know, where I was going, what I was doing, right? Because we had built that rapport. And so I left on good terms. In addition, I did this grace. I don't recommend everybody do this. I'm sure, you know, you will probably get a lot of people in the chat on this one. But I gave them 5 weeks notice.
Oh, wow.
So I gave them a month, where for an entire month, and because it was the entire month of March, and I think the last week of February. And that was all me doing transition work. I was putting together portfolios for them, binders, all the information, processes, passwords. Like, every relationship I had ever built was in an Excel spreadsheet with
Oh,
emails,
that's nice.
names, titles, organizations, phone numbers. Like, I did a full on dump of my brain into systematic documents, and did that, you know, in a month, and left that with them so that they could be successful, right? And so I'm not saying to necessarily do that, because I know that, you know, there's a lot that comes with that. When you give
Right.
somebody, when you basically agree to say, you know what, okay, hey, I'm out, but I'm going to be here for a month to help you transition. I stayed, I helped with the hiring process for individuals that were going to be coming on after me. And so in that sent the message to them, she is not trying to sabotage our office.
Right.
She is not out to destroy this place. And if you don't intend to burn bridges, then don't burn bridges on the way out. Now I recognize that there are a lot of situations where it's not possible to give that much notice. It's not possible to provide that much information. And a lot of times you're working with a supervisor that you do not have a relationship with and you do not want one. And so in those instances, I just strongly try to encourage to do the professional thing, right? You always do your best to have the hard conversations in person. You always do your best to, even after those hard conversations, you follow up with a written letter of resignation. After that written letter of resignation, you are there. 2 weeks notice is typical. So if you've given 2 weeks notice, during those 2 weeks, please do not take all of your vacation. I've seen some things.
Oh yeah. Yes, I believe it.
People give 2 and 3 and 4 weeks notice, and then they use all their in those 2 to 4 weeks. It's all vacation, it's all PTO, it's all sick leave, and they're just gone because they're trying to milk the entity of the time and the money that they might not be able to actually get in a check. That kind of stuff, right, leaves a bad taste in somebody's mouth, because then it's like, and I've seen, I saw an individual do this, and then maybe a year later they circled back and tried to apply for a role within the very same office with the exact same leadership. Like, we all didn't forget that you did this. And so you never know where people move. And so I have seen people leave a thing and go to another organization. And now that was the organization that you had your eye on. And so you were trying to interview there, but now your former supervisor is over there. And so now you feel like you're not going to be able to get the job that you really wanted, because she's going to tell them how you really are. Like, if you just do the professional thing and you're intentional about building sincere mutual relationships with people, that's what I have found, is that there's a level of respect where people know, hey, we might not have Claudia for long, but we do know that, Claudia is going to give us 100,000% while she's here. And she's going to do the professional thing when it comes time for the exit as well. And if you can build a reputation of yourself in that respect, that like, okay, every time this person shows up to work, they are dressed appropriately. They're dressed appropriately. They are always prepared. Their work product is always submitted on time, if not early. They are personally punctual to meetings and different things of this nature. They handle hard conversations, work conflict, and etc. in person and with compassion, dignity, integrity, and respect. At that point, you've built a reputation that, okay, this is a respectable person. Even if we do not always agree, even if we do not personally like each other or spend a lot of time together, I respect this individual as an employee, as a coworker. And when this person leaves, even if it inconveniences me, even if it puts me in a bad situation, I respect this individual because they have always been the consummate professional. And so that's what I would, encourage anybody to do, because I think that God first. God is who has opened every single door for me personally. But in addition to God, I am always the consummate professional. and I live my life with great integrity, great dignity, great respect, and excellence and professionalism is always at the top of my list of how I show up. And because of that, there are people who I haven't even met who know about me and are like, "Oh my goodness, yeah, I heard about you. Listen, whenever you this happens all the time. Whenever you get sick of wherever you're at, I got a
Oh,
job for you." Right? Like,
well, that's
and
that's
so
the reputation you want to have.
that's the
Yeah.
reputation you want to have. You want people in the street to say, "Man, having Claudia on your team, having so and so on your team, that is the greatest advantage your organization can have." And that comes with how you live.
So with that, what is the best way in which to kind of engage with you if somebody wanted to reach out to you or see some of the content that you're doing?
Absolutely. Follow me on Instagram, on all my platforms. It's officially CMA, officially CMA. That's where you can follow me. You can feel free to send a DM. People DM me questions and stuff all the time, and I do my best to respond wholeheartedly. You might get a voice note. It might be 5 minutes. You might get 2, 3 voice notes. As you can tell, I'm a little long-winded, so don't be mad at me. But I do tend to be a bit long-winded with my answers. So, but if you reach out, I am more than happy to respond. So.
Well, thank you again so much for what you've been able to share. I think I picked up a book. I picked up a book here, How to Be a Grown Up, the 14 essential skills you didn't know you
love
needed
that. I've got it up on my Amazon. I'm checking this out for real.
Rafi Greenberg. This is a great book, but I think you filled in some pieces that weren't even in the textbook. So
Mercy.
thank you so much. And want to encourage our audience to continue to watch our content. We are trying to ensure that we provide information that will empower you and inspire you as you grow as an adult. Blessings to you. Until next time.